Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Epic Vision Zone. My name is Jane Applegath, a former award-winning stockbroker, television producer, script writer, yoga instructor, serial entrepreneur, and now founder of the Epic Vision Zone. Each show, we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dream by showing you how to enter the portal to your new epic reality. That place where possibilities, prosperity, and potential reign so that you can live your epic life. Thank you all for being here today. Artist and writer Morgan Harper Nichols wrote, "I just want you to take a moment to affirm the strength and the courage that is still running wild within you. Resilience, the capacity of a person to maintain their core purpose and integrity in the face of dramatically changed circumstances." Meri McCoy-Thompson's passion is to empower people to lead transformational change. An Irish American who has lived and worked with nonprofits on 4 continents, Meri is on a lifelong journey of discovering the layers of our cultural patterns. A COO of Dovetail Learning, a nonprofit dedicated to strengthening resilience in children, youths, and adults, Meri has been the co-developer of We Are Resilient, as well as guiding Dovetail's strategic planning and organizational effectiveness. Throughout her career, which includes Director of Strategic Partners with the Gratitude Network, the Executive Director of the Human Needs Project in Kenya, and work in Beijing, New Delhi, and Washington, D.C., Meri has worked to guide others to shift from feeling off balance into feeling confident and competent, because there is hope when we can cope. Meri loves to facilitate resilience circles. That sounds fascinating. These circles teach people that small changes in our thinking and behavior can have big payoffs in our lives and relationships. Her goal is to show people how their protective patterns can derail them, because she says every day is a gift and we are blessed to have life and each other. Thank you, Meri, for joining us. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be with you.
Well, this is a topic that we all need some teaching in for sure with our world today. Give us a little bit of insight on your personal journey. What was it that took you down this journey and drove you to your passion and purpose to do the work that you do today?
Thank you. My journey has taken me all around the world, as the intro alluded to. I have worked with nonprofits in Nairobi and in Beijing and in Afghanistan. And a lot of that was about, different types of changes we could make on the ground. So it was about, how can I provide water? What kind of education can we provide? How can we do social entrepreneurship in a way that helps people? And all of that was interesting and inspiring, and I loved the work. But when I discovered this work, I realized that a lot of things that happen get in our own way. And to really make the changes that we need to make in the world, people have to understand what's getting in our way and simple skills that we can use to keep ourselves centered and keep ourselves connected with each other and collaborate. Because once we do the internal journey that we need to make to become the best version of ourselves, then together we can create the world that we need. So all these other things will happen because people are smart, people can do things, but there are small things that people are doing to get in their own way that make it more difficult to make the changes we need to have the world we want.
That's really interesting, because you said that in doing all that work is what sort of gave you the aha moment or moments to determining that there was one thing in common that everyone needed.
Well, it was sort of like I kept looking at like, but how can we make a deeper change? How can we make a deeper change? What is at the foundation of what's happening here? Why are people, like I said, getting in their own way or having arguments? Why are people in conflict over small things that lead to conflict over bigger things? And how can we help people work through those kind of conflicts so that they can work together?
Right. Yes. So intelligent. I mean, that's the knowledge, right? So
Yeah.
speaking of that, defining resilience, how do you define resilience then? I think there's a lot more than meets the eye to resilience.
Absolutely. And that's one of the joys of the work. So we define resilience as an ordinary superpower. And that means we all have it. And that's why we named our thing, We Are Resilient, our approach. Um, yet it can go up and down in different situations. We can feel super resilient, like, oh, I'm on the top of the world, things are going great. And we get one phone call, someone walks into the room, we get one email, and we're like, oh, we just get all off center and we don't react well. And so the thing we want people to realize is that's true and that will never change completely. But there are skills and things we can do to strengthen it. So the highs don't have to be so high, the lows don't have to be so low, and we can, be more effective in the work that we do. That's the general. We also look at 5 types of resilience. We distinguish between personal resilience, which is what we normally think of, our reactive resilience, which is how we react to situations, cultural resilience, how we view the world, and relational resilience, which is how people get along together, and then group resilience, which is what we need when we're trying to solve problems in a family or a team. So by looking at the small details of all of these, it helps us distinguish the ways that we can strengthen it.
Oh, I love that distinction because I had never realized there were different areas of resilience, like you said, the group
Yes.
or it, because that makes all the sense in the world. Often we
Yeah.
think of resilience as personal, but there's a
Exactly.
dynamic. And once you understand that, you see that, yes, this is the reason why. I can see it. I can so it helps clarify why there is such an importance to the word resilience and the practice of it. So uh, that actually, I kind of was talking about the question, the importance of resilience in life. Maybe give us a couple of examples and why it is so important.
So let's take, for example, the personal resilience, right? In some ways, that's the most obvious. So something happens and you're like all off center. And if we use the skills to become more resilient, then we feel better. We're more effective. When someone comes with a problem, we're thinking more clearly. We are more creative. All these things give personal resilience can help us with. It also actually helps us with our physical health because our mind and our body are so connected that when our mind is clear, our body can handle things better. Relational resilience, easy thing, my husband walks in the room, says something, let's say we're trying to prepare for a trip. Classic example of when we need relational resilience, like packing. And if we haven't built up our relational resilience, he might pack the same thing that I'm trying to pack, or he forgets something and I don't. And did you get this? And we argue and snipe with each other. And it just means our relational resilience is low. Group resilience. I know for myself, my organization, Dovetail Learning, has been through a lot of ups and downs. And when we're all in sync with each other, we come up with creative solutions to whatever's thrown at us. And when we're not, then, with one small thing and somebody gets mad at someone and that kind of thing. So that's just small examples of the everyday way resilience can impact our lives and help us or not help us.
It's really important. The bottom line is it's really important
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
So what gets in the way of our resilience then? I mean, are there you said, we mentioned earlier in the intro, you said protective patterns. That's
Yeah.
really an interesting phrase, and I hadn't heard of them. But what
Yeah.
are those, and is there other things that get in our way?
Yeah, protective patterns are so our protective patterns are how we react to the world. This is something that we learned often as a child, and we define 6 types of protective patterns: everything from attacking, distrusting, hypervigilance, hyper caretaking. And these are things that we do when we feel a little unsafe. we feel a little off, and we just naturally do them. For example, I have a mother with Alzheimer's right now, and so I'll move into hyper caretaking. Okay, I have to take care of everything. And sometimes it's like, no, one of my siblings can take care of that thing, but I jumped in and I did it instead, and therefore we get into a snafu, right? My tendencies are attacking, and I also do avoiding. So an example of an attacking protective pattern, again, my husband will come in and he'll have an IT question. And for some reason, it just sets me off. So it's like, why did you do this? And why haven't you done that? And I can't do this. And da-da-da-da. And I just snipe at him for no reason. And I'm like, oh, that's my protective pattern. I am protective about my time or whatever. The reason we call them protective patterns is because they can be helpful. There are times that it's super helpful to use our protective pattern, and we go through that when we do our training. And then there are times when it's not helpful. So we don't want anyone to judge themselves that they're using their protective patterns and they shouldn't be using them. It's like we're just trying to help people notice what's helpful and notice what's not helpful. And that's why we call them protective patterns, because they can protect us. And yet if we're not noticing them, they also can really get in our way.
So it's the awareness. I love that, because it all comes back to awareness. It's like, we live unconsciously for the most part. And this brings it to, this is the knowledge, right? When we have the knowledge, we have more to pull from. But I'm really interested in what the protective pattern might be on that technology story, because my husband and I are the same, only I'm the one who gets in trouble because I'm like, I don't understand what the computer is doing, and da-da-da. And he'll come over and he'll say, move out of the way. Let me do. I said, well, show me what you're doing so I can learn, right? He's like, no, I can do it faster. So what is he protecting? I'm really curious.
No, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. And that's something like I have to dig into myself and say, like, what is it about this interaction that sets me down the road, right? Why do I feel I need to have to protect myself? Is it, he's not trying things that I want him to try? Is that he hasn't listened? Is I'm protecting of my time? Am I protecting like the equipment? I don't know why that sets me off, right? And I've been working on this for a couple of years, and I'm less set off now. I move into like one of our connecting skills is choosing kindness. So I'm like, okay, just choose kindness in this. Like, it's not helpful for our relationship for me to move into attacking, right? And so part of it depends on how centered I am when I start versus when I, move in. And it's just an example. I mean, I can move into attacking like when we're packing the car, like I said, if it's like, wow, you forgot this and blah, blah, blah. And it's really helpful to me to go, okay, that's not helping. We're not going to get the car packed if I, move into attacking. So and it's just a learned behavior. I grew up in a yelling family. I have 2 older brothers, and that's just people did. They yelled. So that's what I do when I'm not careful and noticing, okay, that's getting in my way. Yelling is not helpful. And then another thing I do is I avoid, right? So I'll get a whole stream of texts from my family about things that are happening with my mother or the caregivers or my stepfather. And I just like put it away. I'm not going to deal with it. Well, that's helpful. Like right now would be an inappropriate time, right? So it's helpful to use the protective pattern when I need to. And then, but if I use it for a week and not pay attention, that's not helpful. So it's just an example of the journey that we try to take people on to help them recognize, when it's helpful and when it's not.
Yes, and I love those stories because it really helps put it in perspective, the protection, and we can all sort of say, yeah, now I realize what that is. I mean, I'm guessing with in my case, he's protecting the equipment. That's what I think. That's just my guess, because it's like, don't touch it. You're going to lose all your documents. Oh my gosh, I have to say, sometimes I'm so paranoid. Yeah. I'm so paranoid to hit a button. I figure it'll blow up. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But thank you, yes, for that the recognition and telling those stories, because you're right. And it's interesting that you say you grew up in a yelling family. I mean, my father used to yell a lot, and I'm the opposite. I don't like when people yell, because
Yeah,
it puts me off, and that's my
that's right.
protective pattern. Is like I shut down, and I said,
Exactly.
don't yell. Yeah, so I love it.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. We'll just all
Yes.
go around saying, I'm in a protective pattern right now. Don't come near me.
Well, no, that's exactly right. So one of the
Yeah.
phrases that we ask people to try is, I'm not my most resilient self, right? I'm not
Oh,
my most
okay.
resilient self now, right? So people recognize, okay, that person needs a recharge and they may be acting in a way that's not their best self. So give them a little space, right? Yeah,
I
another
love
example of
that.
a protective pattern, my husband is distrusting, which means we drive, half a block and he has to stop because what did he forget? So he go back and
Mm,
checks everything. Oh my gosh, I forgot something. And for me, I just have to sit there with the smile. It's like, okay, he's feeling up, not settled. And so this is how he's reacting, right? And we're trying to work on like what kind of strategies can he use to bring down this distrusting so he doesn't have to stop the car and look for whatever he's afraid he forgot, which often is not true. But he just moves into the I don't trust myself. And that's his
mm.
protective pattern, right? And it's
Oh,
helpful. Like if I'm doing taxes or something that needs a lot of attention, it's good for me to be distrusting. But then it's not helpful when we're trying to drive away from the house, right? So,
do you ever get
um,
anywhere? I just,
I know it's like, okay, I just have to build in that extra 5 minutes for stopping, looking for
right.
whatever, and then moving on, right?
Oh
And
my
if
gosh,
he's in
that's
a more
it.
relaxed place, yeah, then it
Yeah.
doesn't happen, right? So
Yes.
noticing that about
Yes.
ourselves, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack there. I love that though when you say I'm not my most resilient self. You could
Yes.
use that
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
reminder to the other individual. So good. So
Yeah.
can how can having resilience help us then with and you answered some of this in your stories, cope with
Yeah.
stress, setbacks and crisis, which is something that is
Yeah.
happening every day now in our lives.
So I'll just give you a personal example that's happening for myself right now. So my stepfather is in hospice and my mother has Alzheimer's and we have caregivers and I have siblings and I have mixed family, blended family. So you can tell that there's a lot going on. Like what happens, I get somebody wants to do something with the caregivers or some other situation comes up and it's like, okay, how do I deal with that? And there's a lot of sadness involved. So I go through the centering skills, for example. One of our centering skills is breathing mindfully, which is what I'm using in the middle of the night when I wake up with all these things flowing around my mind. It's like, okay, how can I take some deep breaths and how can I breathe mindfully so that I can relax and be more centered and go to sleep? Another thing is noticing myself. That's another one of our centering skills. So just allowing myself to have those emotions, to have the sadness that comes, to have the anger that might come when somebody doesn't act in the way that they want. All those things can help us. And then it doing those centering skills helps me feel calmer and more effective. And then I can move into my connecting skills. For example, if I'm talking to my stepsister and she's concerned about how to do something, and I can have empathy. Okay, she has a different perspective than I do on this, but how can I use heartfelt listening and really listen to her position? And then when I listen to her position, what kind of choosing kindness can I do? I don't, for example, I want to just pretend that this is not happening. It's like, no, you need to make a check in. You need to call her because that's what choosing kindness would do. And I can speak authentically. I can share my own stories of when my father died or my father-in-law died to help her move through this in a deeper way. So it's just an example of, the things that life hits us with and how going through the skills and being aware of a range of skills gives us something to think about, gives us something to help us approach things. So that's a personal example. On another layer, like a professional example, I was working with a center in Nairobi that was providing technical training and water and sanitation. And we reached a point where we didn't have the funding we needed to do what we were supposed to do. And it was very hard. It was like, oh my goodness, the whole project's going to have to close. And I just went to bed and I was
Mm.
totally discouraged. And then I woke up and I thought, what if I use positive reframing? We have the same thing that we had yesterday, but how can I use those things in a different way? Is there a way to look at the people who work for the center, and maybe we can come up with new things to do? And I just put on that positive reframe. What are the different aspects? How can I change this obstacle into opportunity? What mistakes can I use and change them into learning opportunities? And together we were able to turn around the center and create the income that we needed and have it go in a different way. And it really showed me how our minds are strong and resilient, and just having certain tools and thinking about the skills in a kind of methodical way allows us to come up with solutions to our problems. So just an example of both a personal and a professional time that the skills can be helpful.
Those were fabulous examples. I mean, I love that reframing, because our thoughts become words, and the words then resonate with us through an emotion. And you're absolutely right. If we just pause and take a look at the situation, and actually it's interesting. I interviewed a gentleman who he's head of the American Meditation Institute, and he said the word problem is a problem, because he said if you close your eyes and you say it repeatedly over and over again, and you open your eyes, he had me do the exercise. He said, now how do you feel? Which is an emotion, right? Energy and motion. And I said, I feel really heavy. I feel really down. And he said, yes, because the word problem has that connotation. And
That's
so
right.
when you said reframing is so powerful, how can we look at this and reframe the way we're speaking about it, thinking about it, and that also what that does is it moves the static away, what I call static in our minds, and creates space in order to create.
That's right.
Let's get the energy moving in a positive way, and let's come up with some ideas. I don't care if they're crazy. Let's just throw some spaghetti on the wall, right? So
that's exactly right. Well, and what you're describing, so it does remind me. So we have this We Are Resilient approach, and we talk about three mindsets. We talk about our patterns. We talked about our protective and our cultural patterns. And then we talk about three sets of skills: connecting, collaborating, and centering. A lot of those things other people cover, right? We're not creating something out of whole cloth. So you're talking about, a meditation that helped you understand problems. We would say, yes, that's part of our noticing myself, right? Maybe part of positive reframing. For us, it's just helpful to have a conceptual framework that have all the pieces together. And then any one of them you can go in and do a lifetime on, right? You can spend all your life on just figuring out how to do breathing mindfully better or letting go. Because there's so much depth in each one of these pieces. But for me to have the whole framework is super helpful, because then I can explore different parts of it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we all need different tools at different times too. So,
exactly.
Yes, and in that particular time in Kenya, you needed the positive reframing.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, you and we could chat for hours. So I love this.
That's right.
So this is really interesting. Resilience in leadership and entrepreneurship. How can focusing on our resilience help us with both entrepreneurship and leadership?
Well, as leaders, we need these skills. We need all of it, because one of the things we do in our approach, we really encourage people to use the practice, model, coach method. So that means we practice it all of ourselves before we model, so we can model it for others, so we can coach others. So that means if we're in leadership, right, we need to have the centering skills so that we center ourselves. We need to understand when our protective patterns are coming up. We need to understand when our cultural patterns are changing the view, and we need to connect with others, and we need to collaborate. So if we're practicing it ourselves, then we can be the leaders that we want to be. Entrepreneurship is the same thing. There's so many things that are coming at us, and we're like trying new ideas. Entrepreneurship is all about, does this work? Okay, no, that doesn't work. Does this work? It's iterating, it's trying out, it's being brave with those iterations. and it's communicating our ideas. And in order to do all of that, right, we have to, okay, is this working? Am I listening to the people in the way that I need to do? Am I connecting? Am I collaborating with my team, right? It requires all of these skills. For our organization is a great example. We had done a product for kids for 12 years. And then we decided we really needed to do a product for adults because adults didn't have the skills to teach to the kids. And so in some ways, we're a 15-year-old organization that's brand new because we have a totally brand new approach. We're doing, and that took a lot of courage, which is one of our resilient mindsets. It took a lot of collaboration, right? We couldn't create the way our resilient approach. It required all of our minds to do it. So it required all the skills that we're talking about, required appreciation of each other, required seeking agreements with each other, and all of us contributing our best. And by doing that, we were able to create this approach that's really transforming a lot of people's lives. So, and it's something we go back to the well every day. Every day we have a conversation with our team and we talk about how is this working in our personal life, our professional life. This is not a one and done, okay, I have the idea, I'm going to keep going. It's, we continually have to work the skills because we're human beings. So.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Practice. I mean, it is a practice. Right. Life is a practice.
Exactly.
Breathing is a practice. Breathing, being aware of all of the things that you were referring to. It's a practice. And like you said, it's so wonderful to know that you practice it among yourselves and then have discussions because we're always learning. There's always new science. There's always new techniques. There's always new tools, that we discover.
That's right.
And we spread around. Yeah. I mean, that's what keeps us going. It's learning and growing. But
that's right. That's
I love that. So signs that you may need resilience. What are some of the signs that a person might be, might not be aware that they need resilience, but they're acting out. And if you were there, you would say, yes, that person needs some resilience.
I think, honestly, we say this is a universal preventive measure. This is actually not for those people over there who need resilience, the ones that are really struggling, because we feel like if everyone did it, if we're all working on these tools, and that's why we talk about practice model coach, that we all need to practice it, then it wouldn't become stigmatized. So much about mental health has become stigmatized. It's like for those people, and it's like, I don't want to be one of those people. It's like, no, we all need better well-being. We all need mental health. And so signs you may need resilience, I would say you're alive and breathing, right? Because then we need to understand how we can handle ourselves better, connect with others, and collaborate better.
Yeah. I guess it in different situations as well, in a business environment, oh my gosh, resilience would be needed every day and every hour, probably, especially with the way things are changing. But then, of course, we have our world, which is leading right into my next question. With our ever-changing world, what are some of the benefits that people can experience through your teachings? Because I know there is a host of them, but give us some examples.
Yeah. Okay. So personal well-being, right? I talk to a lot of people and they get depressed about the state of the world, right? Ukraine and the climate change and what's happening in politics. And for me, I'm just anchored in hope, right? And how do I stay anchored in hope? I stay anchored in centering myself, right? So I've used the skills to be centered in myself and so that I can be anchored in hope. And we also therefore taught the importance of relationship. I think a lot of people like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do this myself. And I think the pandemic has helped people unlearn that. People realize, wow, I really want to be connected with others. But being connected with others and being our most authentic selves in relationships, that's another important skill. And by doing that, we can also deal with the things that are thrown at us, whether it's in a big sense or a little sense. One of the things we really talk about when we work with businesses and organizations of all types is incorporating relational skills into the business. People think, oh, if I just have an org chart and job descriptions, people just do all their work. And it's like, we're human beings. We're wired to connect. And if you can tap into that strong wired to connect, you can create a much more effective workforce. I have to say the military understands that. It's one of the reasons the American military has been so strong is they create, little units, and people care about their best buddies, and they go through these situations. And so people are always like, that's who they're fighting for, their buddies. And that's
Right.
actually true everywhere, right? So we're in our workforce. If we are doing this for our team, then we work so much harder, the people that we care about and see us as a wholehearted person. So it can help us cope in a changing world in so many different layers, right? Centered, connecting, and collaborating.
Yes, I love that. Centered, collect. What was it? Centered,
It's
connection,
centered, connecting, and then
collaborate.
collaborating, right?
Right. Yes, I thought I had it right, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
some resilience there. I don't know. I feel that this topic it covers everything really. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much to unpack here. So, give
Yes.
us how can we learn more about We Are Resilient?
So, of course, we have our website, dovetaillearning.org. And at the website, there's a lot of free resources. We make our
Mm,
materials available as an open educational resource. It's one of our values. We feel like resilience is a human right, mental well being is a human right, and we want to share it with everybody. So, all of our curriculum, everything, you can actually just download it for free. Now, a lot of people like physical copies, and so we also have books and posters and things available for purchase. We also have a lot of training sessions, and I think that's where people really get the most out of our work. So we have small, short things like webinars, and they're just to give you a little taste of what the work can be. There's a lot of free webinars that you can, future ones that you can interact with and ask questions, and then there are past webinars that you can sign up that we've already done. We have resilience circles, which we talked about at the beginning. They're my favorite type of training because it's once a week for 6 weeks. That's the first session, and then you can sign up for additional ones afterwards. But you're working with a small group, and you're practicing the skills, and you're practicing the approach over time. So you learn over time, and people bring their stories back and say, well, this is what happened to me with my best friend, and this is when my protective pattern was coming up to, and this is how I learned to use my centering skill. This is what I'm learning letting go. So people really integrate it into their life. So I really encourage people to sign up for resilience circles. We do all sorts of training. We do it for schools, we do it for healthcare clinics, we've done it with the juvenile justice population, we've done it in
mm.
businesses, first responders. So a lot of people bring their group. And that's another really great way to do it, because then you have a group that you can practice the skills with, and you can learn how to do this as a whole team, and it can bring your team to a different level. So we really encourage that as well.
I would think this would be useful for anybody and everybody. And how
Yeah.
do I'm just curious, is it you've been around long enough that businesses find you and individuals as well? Because
Well,
it
I have to
sounds like you're
say,
dealing with
getting
all
the
areas.
we are, and getting the word out is one of our biggest challenges, because we're,
Oh,
like I said, essentially a startup and a 15-year-old organization, right? So we were working primarily with schools. And you can imagine the last 2 years, schools and healthcare organizations have had very little bandwidth, the most need, and very little bandwidth to add resilience training. We're hoping now that things are a little bit more open, that people have a little bit more space, and they have. So they can say, okay, let's do that training. So the next time the crisis hits, we're ready. But getting the word out is a challenge, and we ask people to share this work with others. So
absolutely. This is so vital. I mean, this would benefit everyone, young,
yeah,
old,
yeah,
corporations,
yeah.
groups, nonprofit, everybody, because we're all dealing with each other. And
That's right. And
it's all
ourselves. And
and
ourselves.
ourselves, right? Exactly. That is so important. And I think what it is, just my own take on it, Mary, is the word resilience. Because, like I said before we started to chat, I always viewed resilience as a personal. We need to
Yes,
be resilient, but it
that's right.
functions in all areas of life and business. it's not
That's
it's not
right.
just an individual, it's a group, because of where it takes you and what it can do for you. Amazing. Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, I see it. So what are your dreams for We Are Resilient, and what do you want our listeners to know about it?
So our dreams are that it's used all over the world in all the different contexts that you just said. That's the reason we made it an open educational resource, so people can take it and share it with others, right? The one thing we suggest, though, is take it and learn it yourself before you share it with others, because that's why we talk about the practice model coach. We're so much more effective in sharing the things we're passionate about if we've actually learned them themselves. So rather than like sharing it with your sister who's a teacher who could really use it, like learn more about it yourself, so that when you're sharing it, we suggest you say, like, I've learned about this. Would you like to be learning about it? Rather than making people feel like, oh, there's something wrong with me, that's why I need to do this. Um, Take it and share it. My dreams are that it's used as much as possible, that we've trained a bunch of people who then can train a bunch more people who then train a bunch more people. We have a coach certification program if people are interested in becoming certified in this work, and then they can train whoever they want. The reality is people can all do it just by downloading a book and then training others, because the work is there. And that's our primary goal, get it out in the world. We think this world really needs it, and we think it can help people create the world that we need.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I'm on board. I can't wait for people to listen in on this fascinating and so informative, this interview, because like I said, the resilience is so much more than what I thought. And probably that will be the case with many others. So what excites you about the future, Meri?
I think what excites me is just the possibilities, and the fact that there's a lot of people who are starting to understand that we need personal transformation to make the social transformation that we need. So people are starting to understand, wow, this can really make a difference. So it really excites me whenever I run into organizations and people will say, wow, we just met with a group today that want to take it into the foster homes and teens who are really struggling. And like, wow, we can't wait to work together and to create an approach that works exactly for that particular group, right? Or because it's an open educational resource, it can be tailored for each group, each people, every group of people that needs it. So it's just an example of, every day I wake up, I don't know who I'm going to be talking to today, who is going to tell me, yeah, this is what I want for my particular situation and how it will change them.
Any last words that you would like to share with our audience?
I think it's that, like I said, the title of our approach is We Are Resilient. So just remember that everybody has resilience within them. And we all have ability to learn how to strengthen it better. But people start with that basic level. And with that attitude, we can approach people understanding that we don't have to solve their problems. Our goal is just to be companions in the journey with them. And I think when people have that approach, that we're not trying to solve anybody else, but we're just companions, and we understand ourselves, how to be centered, connected, and collaborating, we can create the world we want.
Yeah, beautiful. Very nicely put. I love it. I have one last question for you, because we are here on the Epic Vision Zone. If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
A journey around the world has led to her heart. Because I think that's for myself, right? I worked in all these different places with all these different people and learned ultimately that changing my heart was the best way to help other people change their hearts. What's the best way to create the world that we need?
That is so beautiful. I love it. I can't wait for the book. For sure.
Thank you. We're working on a book that, that would be more accessible to people. Right now, our books they're kind of cheat sheets for our training, but they don't go into detail about the work. And we're hoping over time to create that. So look for it next year.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, I need to touch base when that comes, because I'd love to let everyone know that it's available for sure. So I wanted to thank you once again, Meri, for joining us here today. And be sure to check out dovetaillearning.org. And for Meri's social links, go to the contact info pages on the Epic Vision Zone page. where you can find all the ways to connect with her and this incredible platform that she has. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. And don't forget to reach out to me at janeapplegath.com, where you can get free access to a download, The Keys to Your Dreams. Looking forward to connecting with you there. And this is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.